Thank you so much for watching Landumc Goes There. Please subscribe and hit the like button and the bell notification button. In 1957, we got to experience an American film noir drama that was directed by Alexander McKendrick. That movie was Sweet Smell of Success. The project starred Burt Lancaster, Susan Harrison, Tony Curtis, and Martin Milner. It was based on a novelette by Ernest Lehman, and the screenplay was written by the director and Lehman themselves. The storyline goes that in a cutthroat world where success is elusive, Sidney Falco, a struggling publicity agent, finds himself constantly overlooked by the self-absorbed Broadway columnist J.J. Hunsaker. Desperate to gain Hunsacker's attention, Falco resorts to manipulating the situation by breaking up the relationship between Hunsaker's sister Susan and her lover Steve Dallas. Through deceit and manipulation, Falco manages to create a scandal that backfires, leading to a confrontation between Dallas and Hunsaker, and also leaving Susan with a difficult decision. In a harsh and unforgiving environment, the consequences of one's actions often come back around, leaving no one unscathed in a city devoid of compassion. Faced with the potential for unemployment because of the sale of Ealing Studios to the BBC in 1954, director Alexander McKendrick began entertaining offers from Hollywood. He had some potential contracts from Cary Grant and David Selznick, but those eventually fell through. Then he was given the opportunity of adapting Ernest Lehman's novelette, Sweet Smell of Success, into a film. Lehman's story had originally appeared in the April 1950 issue of Cosmopolitan, but it was completely renamed with the title Tell Me About It Tomorrow. This was done because the editor of the magazine didn't want the word smell in the publication. This original story was based on his own experiences working as an assistant to Irving Hoffman, a New York press agent and columnist for The Hollywood Reporter. After this was published, Hoffman wouldn't speak to Lehman for almost a year and a half. Eventually, Hoffman then wrote a column for The Reporter, speculating that Lehman would make a good screenwriter, and within a week, Paramount called Lehman. Lehman went on to forge a screenwriting career in Tinseltown, writing Executive Suite, Sabrina, North by Northwest, The Sound of Music, West Side Story, The King and I, and Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf. By the time Burt Lancaster's production company acquired the film, the screenwriter Lehman was in a position to not only adapt his own novelette, but also produce and direct the film himself. After he scouted many filming locations, he was told that the distributor, United Artists, was having second thoughts about going with this first-time director. So they ended up adding McKendrick to the production. The director initially had real concerns about trying to film such a dialogue-heavy screenplay. So he and Lehman worked for weeks and weeks on it, trying to make it fit into a more cinematic role. As the script neared completion, Lehman became ill and had to resign from the picture. Eventually, they brought in someone else to polish the script, but they needed about 4 months to do that. They wanted to start shooting, and they did, without a final script at all. The basic plot was completely intact, but they wanted to add greater tension and make more dramatic energy in the film. Tony Curtis had to fight for the role of Sidney Falco because Universal, the studio to which he was contracted, was worried that it might ruin his career. You see, he was tired of doing pretty boy roles, and he wanted to expand his resume and prove the fact that he could act. Eventually, he got his way. Orson Welles was originally considered for the role of J.J. Hunsaker, which, if you think about it, after you see the film, I feel that he probably would have done a better job than Burt Lancaster did. Not that Burt Lancaster's performance was bad, I just think Orson Welles might have been better. In addition to all the behind-the-scenes stresses for the movie makers, shooting on location in New York City was made more difficult by the large crowds of groupies for the then heartthrob Tony Curtis that would show up and try to break through the barricades to get near him. And also Burt Lancaster is given top billing, but Tony Curtis has a lot more screen time and carries more of the film's plot on his shoulders. The original budget for the film was $600,000. It eventually ballooned to $2.6 million before things were said and done. There is quite a few actors that you're going to recognize in the film, and actually 21 of the actors in the movie would later star in a Twilight Zone episode. People like Susan Harrison, Martin Milner, Barbara Nichols, David White, and Lorraine Tuttle, just to name a few. It was David White's movie debut, and we remember him best as Darren Stevens' boss in the 1960s TV show Bewitched. It was also the feature film debut of Susan Harrison, who would go on to only make one more film, that being Key Witness from 1960. And then there's the Platinum Blonde, played by Barbara Nichols. She really stands out in this movie and does a great job with the character. She started out in New York as a showgirl, and the club owner offered her a much higher salary to perform a striptease, but she ended up declining the offer to keep her focus on becoming an actress. She went on to begin modeling for Cheesecake magazines in the late 40s and was eventually considered a minor rival to Marilyn Monroe. Now, Nichols died young at 47 in 1976, and what killed her is a really strange thing. She had 2 separate automobile accidents earlier in her life. One damaged her spleen, and the other damaged her liver. This damage, years later, came back to take her life. You'll find her interred at Pine Lawn Memorial Park in Farmingdale, New York. Go back and take a look at this film. It's a good one. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll continue to chase the classics.